7:40 right now. More on our top stories this morning. The talks between the NFL and the Players Union have now been extended. They got an extra 24 hours, so that means the deadline is now midnight tonight.
All right, the NFL and Players Union still working on a compromise to avoid a lockout. And Dave Ross joins us now with the guest with more on this multi-billion-dollar issue. Billion.
Allison, this one's so big that I can't handle it. So I had to bring in J.I. Halsell because he knows much more about this situation than I do. J.I., thank you so much for coming in this morning. You've been a busy man this week.
Yes, I have.
As we all have, trying to really track down and figure out what's going to happen here. We have the extension now, 24 hours. It is set to expire now tonight at midnight. I thought when I had you coming in today, it would already be resolved one way or the other. What is your inkling? What do you think is going to happen tonight?
Basically, we're going to get another extension. We'll get an extension for whether it's 7 to 10 days so that both parties can hammer out this very complex issue. And obviously, it won't get done here in a 24-hour period. So today's meeting, if you will, with the mediator is really just to figure out what that further extension is going to be.
Do you think it was posturing on the union's part, or excuse me, on the owner's part, to say, hey, we'll give him 24 more hours. We gave him 10 days. Look, fans, we've done everything we can for these greedy players to come to our agreement. There's no way they can spin this positively, can they?
I don't think it was posturing. I think what was a big issue was the fact that they lost the television lockout money in the Doty ruling. And so that basically allowed for the owners to say, well, we've lost a little bit of leverage, but I'm sure they had already planned for it.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and, work towards a 24-hour extension, and then we'll try to, get a further extension, get a deal done.
We're taking a look at some of the labor dispute points, the $9 billion. How are they going to be able to split that up? The 18-game season that the owners seem to favor, that the players do not, and possibly having a rookie cap. Are these the big three sticking points that you see?
Yeah, that first bullet point, the $9 billion revenue, is really the biggest point, and everything else is ancillary, because when you think about why do you go to an 18-game schedule, well, that's to increase the revenue pie.
Okay.
So that goes back to the $9 billion. The rookie salary cap or the rookie pay scale, that goes to, player costs. And again, that goes back to revenue, because if you can lower your player costs, then you increase your margins. And at the end of the day, the owners are saying that their margins are not where they need to be in order to grow the game.
Okay, now let's talk about the decertification of the union, because you and I were talking backstage about this, essentially, that this is a last resort. It could be a last resort for the players. Do you think that could happen if an agreement's not reached by midnight tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to look at two scenarios here. Either we get another extension or we get decertification of the union. And the reason why the union would decertify is it then allows the union to pursue an antitrust suit against the league, which basically says they're charging that the league is a monopoly and all of the rules that are in place prohibit the free market of the players. And so, but if we go that route, it's going to be a long, drawn-out court battle. The NFL has already made a claim to the National Labor Relations Board saying that decertification isn't true decertification, that they're only doing it for strategic purposes as part of this negotiation.
And we've seen that some of the big guns said that if we do decertify, the Tom Brady's, if you will, the Peyton Manning's, Drew Brees's, they said that they'll be the first ones going up there to sue the NFL. So they're not backing down. The big guns are behind this.
Yeah, they would be the parties to a class action suit, a class action antitrust suit, if you will, whereby those three quarterbacks represent all of the players as part of a union.
Can we talk football? Are we going to have football, J.I.? I mean, I guess that's the brass tacks. When we get down to it, are we going to have football in September? What's your crystal ball see?
I think at the end of the day, we do have a 2011 season. I think it begins on time in September. I don't think, it's not good for either one of these parties, the union or the owners, to drag this out and potentially delay a season or even, preclude a season from occurring.
Okay, now, J.I., you also have a history with the Washington Redskins. You were a former salary cap analyst. You worked closely with Dan Snyder, and again, you and I were talking before. Tell us about Dan and his day-to-day operations, more involved than people might think.
No, I mean, as advertised, Dan is definitely very involved, particularly when I was there. He was very involved in any decisions we were making, whether it was from a talent acquisition standpoint or from a salary cap player contract perspective. Well-intentioned, don't get me wrong. Just like myself, Washingtonian, grew up as a fan of the team, Dan Snyder did. And so he was very involved. And I think now with the new regime, the Bruce Allen and Mike Shanahan regime, maybe he's taken a bit of a step back, but he's still very much part of that process.
J.I., we saw a signing yesterday that I know Steve wants to chime in about. We saw O.J. Atogwe beat the clock, if you will, and get a 5-year deal with the Redskins. Steve, I know we talked about it at the 5 o'clock hour here. I guess, again, trying to get a deal done before this cap or this the league goes to a point where they can't make any more deals. Were you surprised by this, Steve?
No, I wasn't surprised by it because I think they definitely needed help and they wanted to get help while they could. Now, here's my question, because anytime you think safety from the Rams and the Redskins and big money, Adam Archuleta jumps up there, and I'm curious, you know, as to the thought process behind this, if it's a much better deal. And J.I., I know you've got the experience there with the payroll with the Redskins. What do you guys think?
I think the Atogwe, that's actually a good comparison to Adam Archuleta comparison.
Oh, that's not a good comparison.
Is that a good thing?
In that regard. Now, hopefully it works out a lot better than the Archuleta signing did, but you can't knock Atogwe from being a playmaker in terms of interceptions and forced fumbles. To get him at $5 million per year, which is what is reported, the elite safety market is $7 million per year, so they appear to have gotten him at a bit of a value, but now you have to look at LaRon Landry's probably going to be getting an extension here in the near future at probably $7 million per year or more. That's a lot of money tied up in two safeties, which is historically a position that you could probably get on the cheap.
J.I., we got to send it back, but real quick, no matter what happens tonight, Atogwe still gets that money, correct?
Absolutely, and that's why you do the deal before a potential lockout.
All right, J.I. Halsell, thank you so much for coming in today. Steve Allison Tucker, that's why we bring him in. He's got the scoop and the lowdown and everything that's going on.
It's good stuff.
Love
Going to
it.
the experts. Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks so much. And apparently, as far as Atogwe, the Rams would have had to pay him $8 million to keep him around, so that's why they let him go.
That's some
Redskins picked him
major
up.
money.
We're in the wrong line of work,
That's some
Alice.
major
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
J.I.'s talking about value when it comes to $5 million versus $8 million. I don't know.
It was either weather or football for me, but, you know, I chose weather.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the
Great
big
choice,
bucks in
Tucker.
football.
Although, if your age